Hey, it's Dave from CHAPS again. Figured I'd continue on with this instructional series this time, going on about audio recording and EVPs. I'm not going to give any instances as to what you declare an EVP to be. Its opinions are varied. And, there's going to be EVPs that I have that people are going to say is nothing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just to do your best to obtain the best quality of it. Thought I'd kind of go through the machines and kind of the process of finding those EVPs. This is again more aimed at kind of maybe a novice audience or investigators, or maybe you've got a new person on your team and you want them to see. That's it. So basically, to start off with, machines. On any investigation, you'd have to have what you need for it, and frankly, if you only have one device, audio is it. Okay, like in 25 years of investigating, I don't have a paranormal picture. I have one clip of video and a lot more audio. Audio definitely produces the most comprehensive results, and is somewhat verifiable depending on the situation. So it's good stuff. The machines, you don't necessarily have to have a really expensive machine. When we started, I believe we were using a micro cassette recorder, kind of like you would do in an auditorium. Nobody has that anymore, and most people now use their cell phones. But if you want to get a nicer one, the Olympus and the Sony, there's some good small systems. We went with a couple of different ones on our team. Our two offices have primarily used a Tascam. Tascam is a very solid unit. It allows for a lot of onboard functions and tagging. It's nice. Multi-angle, unidirectional mics, etc., etc., etc. We also on our team happen to use the Zoom H5. It's not necessary to go this direction. Zoom is a bit of a pricier unit. Frankly, I think a lot of the times when teams invest, and this was ours too, because you go a little toy crazy once in a while. Frankly, I saw it and I was like, I've got to spend the money. I think it cost me about $600 new out of my pocket, and really, to kind of know what the material is that you're using. This is more for recording artists, right? Because it's 4-track recording, they can overlay and overdub. And for me, something as simple as a small handheld recorder would have done better. But mistakes happen over the years, and it's been a great unit regardless. Going beyond that point on machines, one of the things you should do when you're going to optimally do an investigation is to properly sync all your devices. Like if you're working with DVRs and such, optimally you should sync. It'll make it easier to review the video. Otherwise, if it's a small household investigation, it's not like 100%, because if you're hearing it on audio, you can generally find it on video and work towards debunking. Excuse me if I'm checking things off. I want to make sure I've got everything. Make sure you hit record. There's turning it on. You can see all the lights going up and down, and that's a standard and ready. I can tell you that veteran team members of mine, including myself, have forgotten to hit the record button, and then you drive 2 hours to an investigation, come back and realize that oh dear, I've got an hour's worth of footage that isn't there. So get to know your machine. That's also important. Get to know what devices it has. Okay, how not to wear it. This is also a kind of what not to do. I remember going back in time. We have a member on our team. It's a little gruffy, coughs all the time, and he wore it around his neck, and boy, that audio was, man, that was a lot of fun. Gruff, cuff, 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 huff. Don't wear it on your belt. Your clothes will swish up against it. Hold it steady, and or place it where it's going to be. Right, that's the most optimal, is to place it right. But obviously, if you're moving in a sweep, you're probably not gonna, you need to place it down in each room, but you are gonna walk with it once in a while. But that's the best to avoid of stuff. Okay, so now the next thing, this was actually something that we got from COPS, COPS, Correctional Officers Paranormal Society. They came to us for some training, and I saw them working with headphones. Okay, so plugging the headphones, you know, into the jack. Yeah, the great thing about it, I never thought in 10 years we'd been doing this already, even as a team. And this, you know, little device turns into a parabolic dish. You know, I'm hearing conversations that could happen, you know, 8 miles away. Probably not that far, but you know, you get the idea. You can really hear a lot, and I think there's goods and bads to that. That tends to somewhat isolate that person to that role. You now have a role for somebody, but they're kind of in their own little world, and it's really loud for them. However, the great thing about it is it allows for a lot of tagging. Like you may only hear a faint noise of a car going by, but they can tag that there was a noise, or if they heard a voice, right, or footsteps or something like that, they're going to hear that. It's super ears, right? So it's good and bad, and what that really does lead into is also to understand tagging and contamination. Before you go into any situation, you do need to know what your surroundings are. There are lots of cars, squeaky floors, yada yada yada. Instruct your team and the client, if they're present, not to whisper. I see that on a lot of TV shows. You see people whispering away. Don't whisper. Oh God, it drives me crazy because you'll hear a voice on when you're doing a review, and then you're like, what is that? You're spending 2 hours looking it over. Really, it was just somebody asking somebody, hey, can you pass that? You know, don't whisper. Speak like you would speak. You know, if there's dogs or anything present, like even on this video track, you might be able to hear my dog puttering around in the hallway out there with big damn claws. So you need to be aware of what contamination exists, and in which case you also don't want to over tag the hell out of your video. I mean, it's one thing, press the button, it says tag, and when you go over your audio file in certain programs, there'll be a line there that says they marked that. But even verbally tagging. Also, this was something CPRI, we tagged a lot, and CPRI kind of said if you're sort of like used to what your surrounding is, then you should know it going over your audio. And it's true. So don't like over tag the hell out of something, but if somebody, you know, kind of comes in the room and whispers, or has a cough like that, maybe tag that, because that might have somebody, what was that, right? Now, generally speaking, noises under review aren't really part of the cadre, right? You shouldn't be using noises and bangs and bumps, but still, tagging is a very important portion of what it is that we do. Placement I've handled, hooking it up to the DVR. Another great thing that CPRI had given us, I thought this was amazing. A lot of the times when somebody is on DVR, they kind of feel like, you know, they have a serious job, right? I mean, they're locating everything happening, but they can feel somewhat isolated from everything, and there's a lot of observations they don't have. But you know what? Hook up, you know, an input line, run it back to your DVR, put it in the headphone jack here, and a set of speakers at your DVR. And they can listen to what's going on. So who knows, right? Like if you're doing like a Sentinel style, or you've got people up there and they're hearing something, they can mark down on their notepad, you know, what occurred at that point in time, and or you can just say it because they're going to hear you through there. Hey, you know, mark this, please, instead of having to radio it. It's really great. It really changed the field of investigation. For us, frankly, it was honestly something that really it changed the whole breadth of what we could find. And then, you know what, you kind of go into your sessions themselves. This is a debatable thing all over the place. There's teams that all do different things. I've been critiqued for talking too much. That's not a shock. I've been critiqued for asking too many questions and not leaving enough time. We all have to make mistakes and learn, and it's true. There's sometimes I even catch myself going, we're not going to get an answer if I keep asking the question. Ask questions that are relevant. You know, it's almost like an EVP session. You've got to kind of ask the stable questions, right? ask the relevant questions. We find that a lot of EVPs happen during casual, irrelevant conversation, like they want to jump in, get it there. You know, if you guys are taking a bit of a break, put the audio down and have it record you. And then there's you know, empathetic questions, asking how they feel and whatnot. And you know, when you're getting answers to all these, make sure that you're coinciding this against the actual claims of the case and the history of the place. And that's going to give you a gradient level of what kind of EVP you're going to get. And then there's Sentinel, right? Sentinel. So, you know, I'm going to place this in one of the rooms and we're going to leave. Okay? We do that. You know, we'll set up an investigation and then we just leave our equipment sit there for half an hour, 40 minutes. You know, these are things also over habit we've learned over the years. That one, again, was a large influence from CPRI and Robert Bradley and a bunch down there. You know, it's amazing how much you can learn from other teams, and always give that credit. Right, so that's kind of the machine side of things, right? And the question side of things. And now we kind of go into evidence. So I'm going to move the camera. Excuse, this is probably more. There we go. So, I'm trying to get this all in one take. So, now when you're doing evidence review, it's important as to the quality of what you're obtaining. Okay? There's kind of a gradient scale. You can look it up, you know, class 1A, 2B, 1C, whatever. Basically, the numerical value could be like the quality of the EVP itself, and you know, with the level of augmentation you had to do to it. Like something, if you had to amplify it 60 times, is probably like a 6, right? And the ABC is in context. So I'm going to give a little adjustment. So, like, say a 1A EVP. And most teams should be looking for a 1, 2, 3 ABC, right? A 1A EVP would be something that, you know, is clear on the original file and augmented 10%, whatever, maybe, and then you get something that's, let's say it's in context. I'll show you one of those EVPs in a few moments. You know, if it's in direct context, Ashmore Estates, we got a bunch of those. Robin has the histories up on the wall, and we got you know, almost every EVP we got that weekend was directly correlated. They weren't as loud, so I would say that they were like a 2A, 2B, right? In this particular case, it was kind of a 1A because a child had been killed in this household, and we were playing a hide and seek game, and with this child. The child was like 6, and well, I'll show you when I get there, but it comes in context. So what you want to think about when you're doing a review is quality of what it is. There's different programs you could be using. This one is Cool Edit 2. Audacity is a really popular one out there too. Some people use Windows Media Player. It's kind of important that your process is involved there. Some people like to review their audio with the headphones on with the machine. Everybody's going to have a different take on things. That kind of like isolates them. I actually find it kind of annoying myself. I actually find myself, if I'm slightly distracted and I put this up and put my speakers on, I hear it better, because if something stands out, then it pops out. But don't tell anybody how you're going to do your review. That's your personal preference. You know, it is what it is. It's part of the process, right? It's important that, you know, what you get isn't something you need to augment, take out all 150 filters. It's just, it shouldn't be part of it, because by the time you're done doing that, then you've changed the original file so much that, you know, you could be just doing all that work to hear a blip, and nobody else is going to get it either, because you're the one that's listening to it. I go through my files, and One of the things I know a lot of people do, I don't particularly agree with, is on-site review. You know, when you're there and you're doing live and you like stop it and rewind and listen to it there. The problem really where it comes to that is that like probably 90% of the EVPs that we start off with a list of hits, right? Like as you're listening, you're like, something happened here, here, here. 90% of them we can debunk. But if you're on site, you're not really in debunking mode, right? You're going to hear something and it's just my personal opinion. Lots of people do it. Part of our particular processing that we use here is that, you know, we videotape in third person, right? So we don't videotape down a hallway while everybody's looking down the hallway. Hey, it's as boring as hell for video, but I videotape the team in action so that if, you know, say I hear an EVP, I can go back to that. I can watch that portion of video, see the mouths moving, see the hands, you know what was that? It's much easier for debunking, and it seems to be proof positive because probably 75% of the debunking that we do is by that. Also, you want to look at when you're going through them all, and you might say, like the last case we had about 6 good hits. In the end, I ended up presenting 3 because a couple of them, you know, just weren't as presentable, right? Like I knew it was there, but are they going to hear it? And it's going to have any context whatsoever. Noises are out of the question. It all really had to be voices. They were fairly, I would call them like a 3 or a 4B. They had context, but they were faint. But and you kind of like, I'm going to give my client something. If I can hear it, they need to be able to judge for themselves, right? So we're going through these type of programs. And you've gone through the review now, and you've taken your raw file and you've clipped it down to smaller files. Generally speaking, the next thing you should be practicing is peer review. I mean, it's okay if you're a team of 2 or 3 people, but I have a team of 16. So I take the peer review. I have a little private group. Take the clips, put it in there, and let's get everybody else's opinion. Let's talk about what the situation was, describe the moment that happened, and then play the file. And then, you know, spend a couple days and have them listen to that file and say, you know, I think this sucks, I think this sucks, or this sounds like this sounds like this, because everybody's going to hear a different word likely, right? So, all that being said, I'll just check and make sure my camera's still on. Here it is. Good. So right here, again, this is one of the files we had. And, first I'm going to play the original file. It's a very short clip, and then I'll play the amplified file, which is 10 to 20% amplification, no other mastication of the file itself. Okay. Turn my speakers on. Okay, so that's the original file, and you can hear that clip there. And of course, on these files, you can expand the portion and go in there and isolate it and do whatever you need to do with it, right? Sandy is generally the one that does that here because she's got more patience than me. And then here is the amplified file. Oh, better restart that. Okay, so what that said was, well, to what we believe is can't find me. The reason why we called that a 1A again was we were playing hide and seek. We were downstairs, this audio device was upstairs, child had been murdered in the home. A lot of other things backed it up as well, but you know, we were 2 floors below and yelling up, you know, we're coming to get you. And we were doing it through a speaker, and we got can't find me, right? So mitigatably, you know, that was as good as we could get it. Again, subjective, never used the term proof. Don't care for anybody who really used the word proof, but it was a good opportunity for evidence, and it was a great